He doesn't look autistic. Don't stare. He doesn't speak. You talk directly to Jacob. He can still hear you. Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. Today's video is going to be a sit-down video. It's actually quite spontaneous. I was doing a little bit of research, as autism parents do. They're the kings and queens of research. But I came across this page that I actually just wanted to share with you. I just was reading it and going, yes. So I'm going to be sharing with you, I'll put the link to the article that I'm reading, things parents of children on the autism spectrum want you to know. So number one is that not all autism is the same, and neither is every child with autism. Autism spectrum disorder is just that. It is a wide spectrum, so any child could be anywhere along that spectrum, and they are all different in their own way, just like you and I are so different. It is often confused that a child is labeled as level 1 autism or level 3 autism, then every child in that category is going to be the same. It's totally untrue. Every child with autism, their communication, their anxiety, their behaviors, their social interaction is all going to be very different. Number two is, just because my kid doesn't look like another kid with autism doesn't mean he's not on the autism spectrum. This is a common phrase said by people who don't know very much information about autism. Autism is an invisible disability, meaning that you can't physically see that someone has autism just by the way that they look. There are disabilities out there that you are able to see that they have a disability. However, autism is not one of them. So I had a lot of comments on some of my YouTube videos saying, he doesn't look autistic. No one looks autistic. There's no physical appearance or characteristics of autism. Autism is in their behavior and the way that they interact with the world. This also makes it hard for when you're out in the community and people with autism may show behaviors that may look rude, or they may look like they're getting angry, or they're lashing out at someone. People that don't know that they have autism automatically think that they're just being bad or they're being rude, and that is a struggle that people with autism have and their families have, because people are less understanding because you can't physically see that they have autism. So autism causes the brain to process things differently. That is the essence of autism, is they just process things differently to how you and I would process things. So if I could explain it in any sense to you, people with autism don't have the ability to filter the unnecessary stimuli that's being forced upon them. Neurotypical people are able to filter through that and go about their day without having that stimuli affect them. And by stimuli, I mean the 5 senses. They have sensory processing difficulties. So imagine all 5 senses being in a shopping center, loud music, loud talking, lots of lights, everything going on, lots of shelves, lots of visual stimulation going on. All of that is being forced upon them, and they can't filter through that. You and I would walk through a shopping center and be able to focus on what we're doing there and block out all of that excess stimuli. However, they are not able to do that. That is also why people with autism like to create order in their lives, because, for example, if they looked at toys on the floor, they would think that's overwhelming and may cause a sensory meltdown. However, they like to line things up into lines and make order of the chaos, I guess. So if you're in a supermarket and you see a child having a meltdown or even just a tantrum, don't stare. Having people stare at you during those times makes the situation a million times worse than it already is. The next one is, my child may be nonverbal, but he has a lot to say. This one rings true. Although Jacob is only 3 years old, he's still pre-verbal. He doesn't speak. However, he does speak to us. He communicates to us in a different way. He often leads to what he wants. He shows us things. We live in a very verbal society that's not very equipped to communicate with people who aren't able to verbally communicate. My son does have a lot to say, however, he doesn't speak it. It's often the case that if people know that Jacob can't talk, they often direct me instead of him, and I know that that's completely okay, but I would prefer someone to talk directly to Jacob so that he can feel like he is part of that conversation. Even though he may not respond to you, he can still hear you, and who knows, he may understand what you say. Routines are everything. So people on the autism spectrum love and thrive off routine. Like things to be the same, they don't like change, and this one is especially hard when people can't really understand why a break in the routine may be such a big deal to kids on the spectrum. So for example, I don't know, a spontaneous trip away or having to break routine to go somewhere else can cause a meltdown and challenging behavior and just a child who doesn't know what's going on. So specifically Jacob, we can't tell him, oh, we're gonna go to Sydney for the weekend and we're not gonna stay home, which is what we usually do. You're not gonna sleep in your bed, you're gonna sleep in someone else's bed. We can't tell him that. So when we do tell him that, but we don't know whether that is being absorbed. When we go down to Sydney, we often have bad sleep, we often have challenging behaviors, he doesn't know what's going on. It's a change in routine, and that is something that children or people with autism struggle with. I love this one. My child works harder than any other child his age. Although we are getting better, our society is not very equipped to involving people with autism. So this means that people with autism have to work harder in order to fit into society. It says here, behind the hardworking kid are parents, teachers, and therapists who are working hard to help that child. Basically, Jacob has to work harder in order to develop at the same rate as other children, which sucks because I just want him to experience the world and not have to work that hard in order to fit in. This one's a little bit funny because it's kind of nice, but in the same way I get where they're coming from. There's no need to tag us in every Facebook article about autism. So, I get quite a lot of comments and I get a lot of, I guess, family and friends are like giving me web pages and things like that on different methods, strategies, things like that. It even said this in the article that autism parents are the best researchers you'd ever know. We research everything, and I mean, when Jacob was first diagnosed, I literally researched everything. I know about everything that's out there. We've tried a bit of the stuff. At our family's own pace, we will try things differently with Jacob. I mean, he was only diagnosed last year. However, I do appreciate the well intentions that come from parents and friends sending us information like that. However, I do get where they're coming from with that quote. And then they go on to say, keep your unsolicited advice to yourself. I do get where they're coming from this. There's a lot of people that comment like, you know, don't vaccinate and make sure they eat gluten-free and no dairy and, you know, try, is it CBD oil or try medication, melatonin, everything like that. You do get a lot of that, which may work for some kids and may not work for other kids. Again, we are doing all the research and accessing all of the health professionals we can on this subject. So whilst again, I'm very appreciative of people giving me advice, it can be a bit much sometimes.